Visions of the Black Heaven, Chapter 8. Duke decided they needed some supplies before going to the cabin. There was a variety store in town, and he knew Melody would enjoy looking around the old-style store as he shopped for what they needed. Driving into town, he turned the corner into the town square. The variety store was one of only a few stores still open in this deserted mining town. He parked in front of the variety, which was directly across the street from the police station. It was a bright day. The sun was shining off the Rubicon's windshield as they walked into the store. The sheriff drove around the curve leading into the town square, pulling up to the police station in front of the limestone building, parking in his assigned spot across the street from the variety store. He noticed one of the Schroeder's pickup trucks and a Jeep Wrangler with Indiana tags parked in front of the variety store. Out of habit, he wrote down the Jeep's tag number. It was a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, unlimited, with the words Rubicon on the hood. He wondered what the word Rubicon meant. Several parking spaces down was another one of Schroeder's pickup trucks. Wonder what that means, the sheriff asked himself. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. The sheriff did not see Wilbur or his brother in the pickup trucks. Walking into the station, he had some paperwork to get caught up on before the end of his shift. The variety store had been part of the community as long as anyone could remember. It offered a combination of hardware, groceries, hunting supplies, antiques, and modern appliances. The store looked like it had been lost somewhere in the 70s. The first thing Melody noticed was the old-style porch with a wooden sidewalk and its wooden support posts holding up the overhang. They walked through the brass-trimmed doors that was so popular in the 40s. Her boots made a dull, echoing sound as she walked on the wooden floors. The air had a familiar aroma like that of her grandmother's attic. Not a bad scent, just an aroma of ages past. Walking down the aisles, she saw antique furniture of every kind. Kitchen, bedroom sets, racks of record albums, 8-track tapes, rows and rows of old books. She touched the displays of old silverware, knives, spoons, and forks in wood felt-lined boxes. A brass-bottomed tea kettle with other copper-bottomed pots and pans popular in the 70s. Turning the corner, she saw a locked display of old antique knives, a collection of old coins, tie-tacks, cufflinks, men and women's rings, watches, silver and gold pens, and mechanical pencils. The back of the store were several rows of new and used clothing. At the center of the store, between the used electronics and several rows of groceries and the hunting supplies, stood a large wood carving of a bear standing on its hind legs. It must have been 7 foot tall. Its caption read, "Old Smoky, July 13th. The year was dented and unreadable. How unique, Melody thought. That's my birthday. She noticed Duke had finished getting the things they needed and was patiently waiting for her to finish looking around. Why didn't you say something, she said. Walking around things on display, she heard his voice. You were having such a good time, I didn't want to bother you. Melody laughed. You're silly. Duke's hands were full of supplies. Melody opened the door, letting Duke walk out first. He squinted his eyes against the glare of the sun shining off the Jeep's windshield. He saw a flash of movement out of the corner of his eye, then felt a searing pain on his head. The supplies fell out of the grasp as he felt himself hit the ground. A voice of the past echoed, Ha! Did you like that? Did you like that, Wayne? Did that feel good? Does that hurt? Yeah, he whispered, that hurt. Caleb's voice continued shouting in that high-pitched tone he always screamed in. Good! The pain says you're still alive. Now get up and fight, you worthless mountain. Get up and show me how a mountain fights back. Show me your avalanche! In an instant, Duke spun to his feet, fists clenched, muscles taut. He was in that stance, ready to attack. He saw another flash of movement. Spinning to his left, he caught the object with his right hand and jerked it hard. It was the same scruffy hillbilly from the truck stop. Melody let out a scream. Duke looked up to see someone behind her grabbing her throat. Before he could react, she grabbed her attacker's thumb, twisting his hand off of her throat, and stomped her right heel on her attacker's foot. He bent over in pain. She instantly spun around, getting behind him, using her leverage, locking his elbow straight. Then she twisted his hand and wrist, bending him over at the waist, pushing him face down and shoulder first into the telephone post. Just before he hit the post, she tripped him, driving him shoulder first and off balance into the post. She smiled, hearing his clavicle bone snap into several pieces. He groaned as he landed face first into the gutter. Duke jerked the bat, reached out to grab a handful of this ignorant hillbilly, but missed. The hillbilly took off running, leaving his co-attacker to fend for himself. Sitting at his desk with a clear view of the storefront across the street, the sheriff looked up from his paperwork just in time to see Wilbur raise a bat and strike the man's head with a solid connecting blow. The man hit the ground with a thud. He was amazed when the man sprung back up. The sheriff knew Wilbur was in for a whipping if he did not get out there quick. He had to smile a little at what the female did to Wilmer. Hope he is not hurt. These people are not nice. Wilbur took off running around the corner of the store, shouting, "I'll be back! I'll be back!" The sheriff ran out to his office across the street, shouting at Wilbur, "Stop, Wilbur! Stop right there!" Wilbur kept running for all he was worth. He knew that all he had to do was get to the field and then to the stream, and the sheriff would never track him. He needed to get home and get some help. The sheriff ran up to Wilmer, who was lying in the street. "Are you all right, Wilmer?" He lay there just moaning. His shoulder hurt like he never felt pain before. The sheriff radioed the fire department and the ambulance to take Wilmer to the hospital. Then he called the other sheriffs to go to the Schroeders to get Wilbur, bring him in for assault and battery. 10-4, came the reply on the radio. Melody was looking at Duke's forehead. He'd gotten a small cut, and a large lump started to develop. Duke was mad. He could not believe what Wilbur had done, but really he should have known better. Wilbur was from just that kind of family, stupid backwood folks who just didn't know when to leave well enough alone. The sheriff walked up. "Folks, I saw everything. Have a man going after Wilbur, now to bring him in for assault and battery. But until then, I need some identification from both of you." Duke handed Melody his wallet. She found his license and military identification and dug hers out of her purse. She handed them to the sheriff. He walked back to his office, typed Duke's name and military identification into the computer. The data came alive on the screen. Duke's military information first. The sheriff's eyes opened wide as he looked at the words DOD classified. The sheriff whistled. "Oh boy, I got a live one here. I had to get over to the Schroeders and warn them of this guy. To tell old man Schroeder to leave this one alone. They have no idea who they're dealing with." The sheriff didn't even run Melody's license. He just wanted them out of town as soon as possible. He made some quick notes of the event for his report later. Then, taking the documents back, he asked Duke if he needed some medical attention. Melody said, "I'm a nurse. No, he'll be okay." The sheriff replied, and he had some errands to do, and he'll return to check on them later. Wilbur told his pa about how the man embarrassed him at the truck stop, and how he and his brother waited at the general store, and how he clobbered him, and how the woman had pushed Wilbur into the telephone post, breaking his brother's collarbone and making him fall into the gutter, and finally, how he ran home for some help. Old man Schroeder listened silently as Wilbur finished with his story. Wilbur expected his pa to say, "Well, come on, son, let's get this man." But he didn't. Old man Schroeder looked at his son with disgust. "You couldn't defend your wife. You couldn't protect your little brother. You left your can in the gutter. You left my boy in the gutter." He shouted louder. You left my boy in the gutter while you ran away. He shouted even louder this time, and he said, you left your kin, my boy, lay in the gutter while you tucked tail and ran like the little scared, whipped pup you really are. The old man walked over to the CB home base radio, pushed the talk button. Woodard, you there? Yeah, Pa, the radio answered. Round up the kin. We got a job to do. Somebody hurt my boy. They gotta pay. Someone hurt my boy. They gotta pay real bad. Yep, they gotta pay real hurtful bad. No one hurts my boy and gets by with it. And send someone to the store and get the pickups. Be right there, Pa, the radio answered. The old man released the talk button, still whispering in a seething voice. Yep, gotta pay. Pay real bad. Gonna pay in pain for hurting my boy. Old man Schroeder walked back to where Wilbur was standing. He shouted, you couldn't defend your wife. You couldn't defend your little brother. You let your enemy get away and let your kin, my son, lay in the gutter. Old man Schroeder took one long, disgusted look at Wilbur. He started to turn away, then spun around, twisting at the hips. He sent Wilbur sprawling to the floor with a solid backhand blow. He was lying in a crumpled pile of human, worthless flesh. It was then that he smelled the first whiff of stale chewing tobacco, spilled drinks, the dirt that had accumulated in the carpet over the years. Old man Schroeder looked at Wilbur, whispering through his clenched teeth, seething in anger. Well, what you gonna do about it, boy? Just sit there like the whipped dog you really are? You're gonna do something about it. The old man walked away, stomping his feet in anger. Wilbur's mother got up and walked over to where he was still crumpled on the floor. She took a long look of disgust at her son, turned her back and stomped off into the kitchen saying, left a boy in the gutter. Thought we raised you better than that, boy. Wilbur listened to his mother moving around the kitchen. He was confused. It seemed as though his pa had already known what happened before he got there. Then he heard a voice coming over the police scanner. Sheriff? That's when Wilbur knew. The front door opened with a hard jerk. Woodard stomped into the house. Pa, what's wrong? Who's in the gutter? Where are we going? The boys bringing the pickups here? Woodard was an abnormally large, quiet man who had a hard time speaking. His lisp made the words with the S sound hard to pronounce. He was born with 6 fingers and 6 toes, deep-set eyes, and a low forehead. The country doctor who delivered him tried to cut the extra fingers and toes off, but did not do a very good job. Part of the bones still remained on the outside of his hands and feet. This made him walk in a funny wobble, not in a normal stride like other people. He could not walk very fast, but as strong as he was, he didn't have to. He did not chase his prey. He was a patient man and waited until his prey came to him. Then he had his way with them. Woodard's low brow and dark, almost black eyes gave him a sinister essence to match his dark personality. He had a grin that matched his looks. When he smiled, it seemed that he had 2 sets of teeth, yet one set had not fully developed. This gave Woodard a strange, almost evil look to him. Old man Schroeder mumbled, "Gonna get this man they call Duke, and get Wilmer out of the gutter." The mother watched the 2 pickup trucks drive off and walked back into the house. A few minutes later, the cruiser's lights were flashing as he drove up to the Schroeder's house. Parking in the driveway, leaving the cruiser running, he got out, put his sheriff's hat on, and walked up the wooden stairs to the front porch, knocked on the front door. He heard a woman's voice called, "Come on in, Sheriff." Taking his hat off and walking in, he asked, "Can I speak to Wilbur Sr.? This is an important matter." The woman's voice answered from back of the house. He's not here. He and Wilbur Jr. just left. You can go now, Sheriff. This is an important matter, ma'am, the sheriff stammered. Wilbur Jr. got tangled up with a man today. Okay, what of it? The female voice snapped. The sheriff shifted his stance from foot to foot, held his hat in his hands, trying to reason with this woman. See, this man Junior tangled with is a military man. His profile's classified. That tells me that this man is from the military special forces. I'd say that this man is so classified that he trained the special forces. This man has eaten people like Junior for lunch. Wilbur will be in trouble, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. Wilbur hit this man in the head with a baseball bat. I saw it myself. You have to get a hold of those two and stop them from doing something they are going to regret. The woman's voice barked. You can leave now, Sheriff. The sheriff tried to reason with the woman one more time. The woman's voice snarled. You can leave now, Sheriff. She heard the door close, footsteps walking across the front porch, then down the wooden stairs. Walking to the front room, she watched the sheriff put his hat back in the cruiser, driving off, leaving a cloud of dust behind him. The sheriff keyed his microphone. Did you find Wilbur? The radio crackled as the deputy responded. No, Sheriff, I could not find him, and the pickups are gone from the general store also. Hanging up the mic, he thought, Wilbur's slicker than a greased weasel. But if that weasel ain't careful and stay away from that military man, he's gonna